What is my favorite worst piece of technology? Wow. I am not a big fan of SharePoint. Um, it's hard to pick a product and not and know that you're not gonna, or know that you are gonna annoy somebody at some level. But SharePoint's one of those technologies. I grew up as a web developer, so SharePoint has always kind of been an interesting one for me to look at as an infrastructure guy, because I see it out there and I see the value in it, absolutely, and I think it's got a huge case, and we run projects based on SharePoint sites, but it never feels quite smooth enough and smart enough the way that I would think it should. And I know in a lot of cases it's poorly implemented, and it gives it a bad name, and that's true with any technology. If it's poorly implemented, VDI is a huge example of that. If you don't do it right the first time, it gets a bad name, and then you never do it because, oh, this thing doesn't work. Well, it works for a lot of people, and you're not really that big of an exception. You just didn't, or whoever did it for you just didn't do it right. So that's probably part of my disgust with SharePoint, but I think that there needs to be some competition in that space, and there needs to be somebody that can come up with and VMware may have it with Socialcast, and the ability to create those community type sites and be able to maybe push Microsoft a little bit to start innovating around SharePoint again and get some better collaboration on a website.
My favorite worst piece of technology has to be the optical disc. They hold so little data in comparison to other forms of media that we have today, and they're so easily scratched and damaged or destroyed. For example, let's say you go and buy a Blu-ray movie, you might spend $25, and one scratch on it, and it has to be thrown in the trash. So I just love the new flash drives. I've got a 32 gigabyte flash drive that fits in my pocket, and it's amazing what you can fit on these. I mean, a Blu-ray holds 20 to 50 gigs, or a regular DVD holding say 4 gigs. If you compare that, I mean, they're giving away 4 gig flash drives here, like mints in the Solutions Exchange at VMworld. So I am looking forward to the day when optical discs are totally gone.
So my favorite worst piece of technology, that's kind of like a double negative, I would say. I'm not a big fan of Apple, but I would have to say that the latest release of Backup Exec 2012 is pretty high up there on the list. Obviously they're a competitor, but there's been a lot of backlash in terms of how they change user interface and those types of things. So it's definitely high up on the list.
So my favorite worst piece of technology is probably the mobile phone, and although I love my mobile phone, my wife probably doesn't agree with me. And the reason for that being is that every single night when we watch TV, I probably spend more time watching my phone than I actually watch the TV itself. So I'm constantly monitoring Twitter, I'm constantly monitoring Facebook, Google+, you name it. It takes up so much time, so I actually need to force myself to lay down my phone at the other end of the table, or preferably on the other end of the room. So I won't pick it up and actually force myself to spend time with my wife and actively have a discussion or just a random chat about whatever. But that's, in my opinion, the worst piece of technology out there today, but it's difficult to go without it.
Wow, my favorite worst piece of technology. That's a tough one. I don't know if I have a single favorite worst piece of technology. I know that a lot of people like to beat up on operating systems, and they'll people that switch to the Mac or something, they'll pick on Windows. I try to get away from that because honestly, some people just work better with one style versus the other, that kind of thing. Maybe the Motorola flip phone, right? I don't know. There's been lots of technology flops. I did the whole Palm Pilot thing, and then I did the Trio, and then I did the Windows Phone. And maybe the Windows Phone would be a good one. But there's been a lot of successful and not so successful technologies, and I think that even in the technology failures, there's something to learn. I mean, would Apple have been successful with the iPhone and the iPad if they hadn't flopped with a Newton many years ago? We don't know, right? Would they have been successful with OS X if they hadn't flopped when they tried to do clones and all that kind of jazz? We don't know. Would Windows 7 have been as good if Microsoft's Vista hadn't been conceived or considered as a failure? I think in all things, if we just look at it and what we can take away from it and learn from it, then we can go from there. But I don't think I have a single favorite worst piece of technology.
My favorite worst piece of technology ever has to be, without a doubt, the television remote. infrared, you have to, if you don't get it at just the right angle, it doesn't work. And we have we're controlling 4 or 5 devices with this one thing, and it's terrible. I wish infrared remotes would die.
Favorite worst piece of technology? I'll tell you mine is, and I've thought about this the other day. I'm an original TiVo customer, DVR, the first one, back when it was them, and I can't remember the other company that came out, but I was Gen 1 TiVos all through the years and DVRs. And that's an area that I think is a great technology, but it's awful. I wish Apple would kind of shake up the DVR industry like they've shaken up the smartphone industry and say, this stuff is just not good. It's not user friendly. It doesn't work like people want it to work. And I've been hammering on TiVo for years that, hey, I'm one of your first customers and I can't even recommend this stuff. And cable providers are the same way. So I'm not a technology person for technology's sake. I say that all the time. I like technology that makes people's lives easier and better. That's why I love virtualization. That's why I love the things that I do. That's why I love my Apple devices and my iPhones, because they make my life easier. And I think that's one of those areas that either they're going to innovate there or they're going to get just destroyed by online streaming. And once the licensing's worked out and people can just go watch what they want to, they're just missing a huge opportunity. So that's one area that I would love to see completely revamped by somebody outside just to come in and take that over.
I would say the worst piece of technology ever invented was the Palm Pilot.
I think it has to be a Bluetooth headset that I once owned. It was a Jabra over-the-phone headset that was, because I don't like the earbuds. Having something inside my ear isn't fun, so I like having something outside. But I wanted something that would do music and do voice calls at the same time. And this thing was just a POC. it had a foldable head top, and so every time you would fold it, you were essentially breaking the connection further and further. So every time you folded the headset, you were essentially breaking it a little bit more day by day. So I think it lasted all of a period of about a month and a half. So that was just pretty nasty.
My favorite worst piece of technology, there's so many of them. There's so many really, really horrible things out there. But my least favorite has nothing to do with virtualization, has nothing to do with computing really in general. It's if you've ever used the original BMW twisty knob interface that they call it iDrive. The original version of that, you would turn the knob, right? The idea was to keep your eyes on the road and just turn the knob and you had a little screen. But the problem with it was so unbelievably slow. You would turn the knob and the screen would respond like 3 seconds later. So you spend the next 3 seconds with your eyes off the road. And so I think they had the right idea, but it was implemented so horrifically poorly that they made themselves less safe and not more.
Favorite worst piece of technology ever made, I think, is going to be texting. Because I am a very socially interactive person. Anytime you go out, you see people either outside of a bar or at a conference like this, they're all standing away. Even in the elevator, something as compact and small as the elevator, what's the first thing people do? They pull out their phones and they stare at them and play with them. You don't say hi, you don't greet people anymore, nobody talks. I think we're going to look back, we're going to open up the time capsule 100 years from now and go texting. What were we thinking?
My favorite worst technology ever, I hate to say it because I like the company, but it's Camtasia. With Train Signal, I use Camtasia a lot. If it would just stop crashing, I would be so happy. I can't tell you how much work I've lost in Camtasia and how much stuff I've had to redo over the years because it just is not a stable product. I wish it was, but it isn't. And I've tried it on lots of different pieces of hardware. It's not hardware, it's the software. I hate to say it, they gotta fix it. But the other products they've got, like Snagit, are fantastic. I use that on both my Mac and my Windows machine, and it's just a great tool for capturing screenshots and things like that. But the screen recording piece, they need to do some work and stabilize that product.
Wow, my favorite worst piece of technology. I'd actually have to say it's digital cameras. Now, we love digital cameras, right? But I'm a data guy, I'm a numbers and zeros and bytes type of guy, knobs and dials type of guy. What drives me crazy with digital cameras is that they're not really efficient in their write patterns. So I'll take a photo and I'll get a large file, 5, 8, 10 megabyte JPEG file. But then if I open it with a more efficient tool on my PC, I can save it to 10% or even less of the size and yet not lose any quality. So the hard drive storage industry loves that, but I really wish that we had a little bit more efficient write patterns for digital cameras.
What is my favorite worst technology? It's got to be Quest vWorkspace, the VDI product. I had to work with that a couple years past, and it is unique in what it does. However, there was some challenges in implementing it correctly and dealing with beta code and Windows, and I'm not a Windows guy necessarily. So, but it was a I don't know what you want to say. It was a big leap for me to jump into a large-scale VDI consulting gig, and it took a lot of work to get up to speed with that product. And in Quest's defense, they had recently purchased the product from Provision Networks, so there was some swirl as they were getting the bugs worked out and figuring out how to support it. So.
Well, I love technology, but to describe a favorite worst piece, oh, that's good. I love gadgets. I'm a gadget freak. I will buy a gadget just because it's a gadget. But I think the Betamax, it has to be Betamax. It's a product that didn't have a market, and it died fairly quickly. And it had competition right away that was better and, more universal. And I'm a little afraid that the Blu-ray is going to go the same direction because naturally I have invested in Blu-ray. I've got Blu-ray movies and Blu-ray players all over the place, and really everything's going to just go to streaming. So that's going to be another great product without a market because there's better, faster ways to do it. But that's actually just technology in general. You wait 18 months, it'll be obsolete.